Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to another live stream on the Nobel Twitch channel. My name is Noble, and today we are going to be playing some Minecraft. I hope you're all having an absolutely wonderful day. Also, Floofy, thank you for DMing first. Hope you enjoy your golden cookie and your apple cider cookie. And hello, Borb Goral. And hello, Riley. We are indeed playing some Minecraft. And Crystal Wing, I hope you enjoy your fresh Felicia. But yeah, we are gonna get right on into it, and we are still attempting to beat Minecraft. So let's swing right into it. Aw, thank you for the hug, Borgorl. So between this stream and last stream, I've planted a big wheat crop. I've also gotten some rough out for our sorting system built, as well as done some more testing. So yeah, it's all going well, and hello ZX. So yeah. The Void is watching. I don't know what that means. We've also got some pale oak trees. And hello, Panda. The tree captator plugin is not running at the moment. Okay, well I'm gonna fix that once I finish chopping this tree down. It's not a mod, it's just a plugin. I'm a Void Kirby. Oh, I see, I see. Also, Floofy, can we get a shout out for Panda, please and thank you? Or from one of our other wonderful mods. Also, we've still got the, it should honestly say the bed fundraiser, but we've got the fundraiser for the new bed still ongoing. Unfortunately, we missed the sale at IKEA. Also, hello, Miles for Trials. How you doing? Alright, I've got to get my plugin installed here, so gonna quickly take care of that. Let's see, what's it called here? Vanilla Tweaks. Alright, data packs. Not mini blocks, not that. Convenience. Concrete cauldron, dragon drops, double shulker shells, elevators, timber, that's what it's called. Toggle with slash timber toggle. Alrighty then, let's get that data pack downloaded. Alrighty, already downloaded. Extract all. And hello, Jensen. Can we also get a shout out for Jensen, please? So one for Panda and one for Jensen. Alright, single player, edit, open world folder, data packs, Old clip, so it seems. Now let's see, what's the command for it again? Trigger timber toggle. Trigger timber toggle. All right, there we go. Now we've got the data pack. Now, my sorting system internally has become a mess. So... Oh, there's carrots. And, Jensen, thank you for getting a shout-out for Panda. Alright, I need... Okay, there's sticks. Actually, I can use copper tools. Have gems to... Also, Jensen, did you forget I have gems to see whenever I please? There are gems to see, question mark? I was not informed of this. I really like the pale oak. I'm thinking of using it, both in stripped and plain variants, for decorating the item sorter. I'm supposed to protect the Sharko from meteors. Ah, I see. Alright. It's not quite night yet, so... It's almost night, I should say. So I'm gonna head in here. Hello, little copper column. Sticks. Copper sticks. Alright. So, we've got lots of stuff in here to eventually feed into the system. Now, in my creative world, I actually filled up these chests with items for the main sort system. But, right now, in there is the priority. So I think I'm going to make one pickaxe, maybe two pickaxes, and then a couple of shovels as well. Oh no. Panda getting beaten down. Yeah, two pickaxes and a shovel. Okay, ZX. Cobblemon's a little modded server that me and some friends are playing on. Just for anyone who's curious. Though I'm not the host, so I'm just one of the people who got invited. I just slept, game. Can you not give me lightning, thunderstorms right away? And no, being beaten up, only snuggled and loved. True, true. And that's the way it should be. Right, the creeper's still here. It logically would be. Oh well. Alright, back to mining. There's apparently mining in something of a pattern here. I've actually been thinking about redesigning my item sorter. Because, you see, despite going and getting a bunch of rails, which I thought would be nice for, like, set dressing purposes, they're actually a really inefficient way. I mean, they kind of meet up with the demand of the system, preventing everything from getting, like, overloaded or whatever, but, like...
Do I at least have a chance to explain myself?
This is America, so no!
This isn't America, this is Ohio!
I love that Scott the Woz clip. Ten fakey fake points to whoever can figure out what episode of Scott the Woz it's from. And if nobody gets it by the time the clock in front of me says 8:20, I'll just tell y'all what it's from. Alright, I'm gonna dig out all this dirt up front, because it's gonna be really annoying to deal with in patches. Alright, so, if anyone guesses after this point, I have told you all, it is from the Scott the Woz Christmas RPG episode. And hello, Ginger Fox. Hello, can we get a shout out for the Foxo, please? The yummy tummy bestie jesty Foxo friendo. Ooh, you got a fresh Empire biscuit. Very nice. Feels very fitting, given British Empire and all. And then I saw her face, da 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 da. Now I'm a believer, da da da. Not a trace, da 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 da. Doubt in my mind, da 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 da. I'm in love, oh. I'm a believer. I couldn't leave her even if I tried. Dun, dun, dun. And then I saw her face, da 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 da. I'm a believer, da da da. Not a trace, da 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 da. Oh. The sound effect did not play in time for me to go and accidentally numph your dragon. My apologies. And yes, it is a foxo. You know what, though? I did go and get a whole bunch of rail, and it might be enough. I am gonna need gold for making the occasional bit of powered rail, but at least for the non-powered rail, it should hopefully be enough. And if I've got enough detector and pressure plate rails, I should be able to make do without all the redstone torches that I have. At least in the big one. Well, I say in the big one, in the testing one. But, yeah. So right now, my goal is just clearing out space for my auto sorter. Because, you know, I figure that's a fun thing to do. I say a fun thing, a necessary thing to do. And I'm going to be building my auto sorter in discrete intervals, I think. I think I'm going to start with building the bottom section and all of its rail. And getting the copper golems into it. Even though the bottom section really isn't functional on its own, it still needs the main core to be built. But I think it's going to be easier to build in all of the decoration for it if there's at least a core of it built. So yeah. Because I don't think it's going to be easy to build all of the internal decorations once I've gotten everything in place. But once I've got an idea of where everything's got to sit, that I think is when it'll get a lot easier to build. But yeah, I've got my little reference sorter here. Which is also nice. One thing I'm one thing I wish I could do.
Bonus ducks.
Thank you for the mean and the bonus ducks, Borb Girl.
Conjure yourself a groin so I might kick it.
There shall be no groin kicking today. Yeah, we've got a whole bunch of rail in here as well, and some powered rail. Hopefully that's enough gold, but I've got to go get more redstone, and I don't even know if I have any redstone. Yeah, I don't have any redstone in there. Got some stone pickaxes, and I got some more sticks, so that's nice. I figure I think copper pickaxes... durability. I'm gonna look that up, after I sleep. Going up here. You're a very silly copper golem. Okay. So the stone pickaxe is actually worse. Copper is better. I don't want to eat through all of my copper reserves, but spending a couple on pickaxes and shovels feels reasonable. See, this is why I need a sorting system. It's just because I leave chests all over the place. I should really plan out, too, what the surface and ground decorations are gonna be, but I haven't done that yet. I know that I want to, like, come down a staircase into here. And I know that there's going to end up being an overflow section for things that I just don't have proper storage for. It's just the nature of building a storage system of any sort, is there's always going to be things that you didn't account for. Always going to be an overflow of some items, an underflow of others. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to have the outside walls flanked with sorting stuff. And then I think I'm going to have on the inside... Just checking the bitrate. I think on the inside of the whole system, I'm going to have a layer of... What would the word be? Basically redundant backup storage. For all the items that I end up with too much of running into the system. And I think I'm gonna store them basically in line with the chests where they would normally get sorted into. I don't know why, but I feel like these sort of like when I dig out on these diagonals, I feel weirdly like it takes less time to knock everything out. And I think it's because it gives my brain something to chew on while I work. Like maintaining the pattern. And despite logically knowing that it should actually slow me down, giving me a thing to think about sort of, I don't know, it doesn't feel like it takes as long. At least when I'm live. When I'm off stream, I'll usually have something playing in the background, and doing the linear stuff sort of distracts me that way. Like I'll be watching a video or talking with friends or something, and, you know, it makes the time go, ow, faster. Okay, we're getting pretty close to the bottom here, actually, which is nice. Damn it, I did not mean to place that. Noble but marketable plushie? Oh, that would be nice. Help, they've turned me into a marketable plushie. No. Also, ZX has rotated the shark. I've been spun right round, baby, right round, like a record, baby, right round. Which I have thought since I was a kid that said like a rocket, baby, right round. I should use these stone ones. At least just to use them up. Void must go now, but you've been flipped. I have indeed been flipped, ZX. Seriously, I can't listen to that song without singing. You spin me right round, baby, right round, like a rocket, baby, right round. I think that's why I think rocket. Because the way he says it in the song is, like a rocket, baby, right round. Because he's not saying record, he's saying record. Which to my brain sounds like rocket, record, record, rocket. It's so close. Because if I was going to say record, it would be record. Record, baby, right round. And it harshes everything around it. Like a record, baby, right round. But like a rocket, baby, right round. It sounds smoother. My brain thinks about how it says the sentence differently. Like a record, baby, right round. Record, baby, right round. I've been flipped. I'm upside down. Ba ba da 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 dun. Michael, my a long way to. Noble, why do people mispronounce stuff so much in song? To force rhymes. Plus different accents say things differently. Like, as an example, like, so if someone from, say, Chicago must is chandelier in that one song. I don't even know what song you're referring to. But, like, different accents exists, right? Like, people say, for example, that Brits don't say the T in water when they say water, right? But what it is a practice known as T-glottalization, because they're not saying war, they're saying, they're saying water, water, water. which is not too different than the way Americans will say lightning. Lightning. Because they're not saying lightening or lightning. They're saying lightning, where it's light. The T sound is It's actually closer to being the in uh-oh or right? So British are just using the which is made through the glottis at the back of your throat. Where for British people, and it's not actually all British dialects that do that. There's kind of like how Canadians, as an example, we get stereotyped as saying, oh yeah, I'm going oot and a boot, as though out, making out and about rhyme. But what it is, right, I noticed that a lot more Americans say about, if I'm going to exaggerate for a minute. So that way, about and out don't rhyme, because they say out, but then they say about. Whereas a Canadian, I say out and about. My tongue, when I'm saying both of those, comes up. Whereas I find for Americans, they don't say out, they say out, their tongue comes up, but they don't say about, they say about. Like a bout of gout. Which I also say is gout. So I say out and about, gonna get some gout. But it's not oot and a boot and a boot, Because it's a boat. It's a boat, not a boot. Wait, that sentence didn't make any sense. But anyway. It's different pronunciations rather than incorrect pronunciations most of the time. But yeah, different people say different words differently. It comes down to a number of different factors from, like, because the accent that you speak gets shaped by the people that you're around, right? And that's everything from how quickly you talk to how loudly you talk to your word choice, your inflection, your tone, everything about the way you speak is influenced by the people that you're around. And so what can happen, right, is let's say someone has a parent that has let's say a speech impediment, right? A physical... I don't want to say a defect, because speech impediments aren't actually defects. Not from the perspective of a descriptive linguist, they're not defects. And almost none of them are caused by defects. Like the TH-V merger, where THs and V and Fs get set as Vs. The TH-F-V merger. So you might have someone who says, oh, I'm through with this. Where TH becomes F and V. Depending. And it's not strictly a speech impediment. It's not a defect, it's just a different way of saying the words. But some people do categorize it as a speech impediment. To my mind, to be a speech impediment, it must impede one's ability to speak. And most speech impediments aren't as big as aren't as big of an impediment as most people would think, like stutters. you know, most of the time, the reason why I found the song, okay, shoot me a link to it in DMs, and I'll give it a quick listen to see if I can find, if you can timestamp to where it says chandelier. It'd be so funny if they say it as chandelier or something like that because they're trying to make a reference to Friends or something. But yeah, most speech impediments are only as big of an impediment as they are because of social conditions. Sent? Alrighty. I'm not gonna play the song on stream just because of just because I don't want to get DMCA'd. I'm gonna take the opportunity to eat some of my chili. It's what's for dinner. Alrighty. Alright. Okay. So, in that case, she's specifically stretching the word to fit. Though she's not breaking it along the syllables, which is chandelier. Because it'd be one... Now, she's from Australia, and I don't know where in Australia. The thing I googled didn't say, so I wouldn't be able to exactly know her accent. I've never heard that song before, actually, so... And it's not meant to be me going, oh, look at me, I'm ignorant of goings-on in the world. I didn't know about this song until just right now. It's that I genuinely had never heard that song before. But yeah, it's clear that it's being stretched out for effect. Now, not knowing where she's from in Australia, I couldn't place if, like, her particular dialect breaks up chandelier differently so that would make sense for why it's being split into the 4 syllables that I heard there. But like I knew growing up in rural Ontario, people would break up words into different numbers of syllables. Like as an example, my mind garage is 2 syllables. Garage. Right? But I grew up hearing people say graj. 1 syllable, graj. Not 2 syllables. But 1 syllable, it was a graj. Not a garage. Not a garage, but a graj. That was if they referred to it as a garage. They would refer to it as a garage. But additionally, they would oftentimes refer to it as a carport. Oh yeah, just park it in the carport. But it wasn't carport, it was carport. You know? So it wasn't, oh yeah, just park that in the carport. It was park that in the carport. And honestly, a chandelier would have never been referred to as a chandelier, but as an overhead. But yeah. So different people speak differently. They say words differently. There are all number of reasons why it also might be weird for you to say. Yeah, wash is wash. Now, part of that is actually due to the fact that English used to have the words wash and wash as two separate words. To wash meant to just meant to clean, which is actually why in some dialects of English, cleaning up is still referred to as washing up. And wash specifically referred to wet washing with either like just water or with soap and water or with any type of liquid product. Now, as wet washing became more and more and more common, people started using wash, just general cleaning, to refer to wet cleaning as well, so washing. And other people started referring to wet washing, or any sort of washing, as washing. Part of it is also related to the way the R insertion that's a thing in the UK. It's a relative of. It's not the same thing, but it's a relative of the R insertion. And not all dialects in the UK have R insertion. R insertion, by the way, is if you've ever heard British people talking, and they insert an R somewhere, right after a vowel, but before another vowel. The best example I ever heard was a Brit explaining it, and the way he chose to explain it is with the word set, "It's got bacteria on it," and the way he would say it is, "It's got bacteria on it." And it's like, right, but bacteria doesn't have an R in it. And on it doesn't have an R on it either. So, what's happening is it's acting as a linking R between bacteria on it. And if you think about the sound and the shape that it has to make in your mouth, you've got bacteria, right? And in my mouth, my tongue is at the front of my mouth. It's touching my bottom teeth, and my tongue is raised all the way to the back. So bacteria, and then it's got to go to aw, where my tongue has slipped completely down, and it's moved away from my teeth, and it's only raised in the back as the whole tongue moves down and back. So it goes from to aw. Very different mouth shapes. So, in British English, they've solved that problem, not intentionally, but they have solved it by using linking R. And that has actually led to some words that are often linked getting a lingering linking R. I've noticed how some Brits will say things like laver instead of lava, even if they're ending their sentence. Oh, I just gotta go get a bucket of laver. Dan TDM, if you ever watch him, he has lingering R, where words that would normally get a linking R end up with a lingering R. Cheese. Now, James May, he speaks in RP, or received pronunciation, which is a semi-organic, semi-artificial dialect of British English. And I say semi-organic, semi-artificial because the way RP propagated was they looked at the way the royals spoke, specifically while giving proper addresses. So where the words were meant to be received. And they turned that into the standard for broadcast English in the United Kingdom. So your local news anchor would speak in RP while delivering the news, right? And the reason RP was invented is the same reason Mid-Atlantic Standard was invented. It's a very clear way to hear over a noisy radio. And when I say noisy, I don't mean noisy as in there is a lot of noise, but noisy as in the signal is noisy. And signal noise is a very specific thing. Signal noise is basically when there is... So, okay. I'm trying to think of how to explain it. So whenever you have audio, or any type of feed, actually, you have what's called your signal, and you have what's called noise. And noise is usually a staticky sound. Noise is also used in videography for the same thing, to refer to little bits of static. And so when you've got a lot of it, the signal is said to be very noisy. If you look at the way news anchors in the United States sounded in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, a lot of them had this sort of high-pitched raised tone where everything's coming out of the nose. Or rather, not coming out of the nose. And it's very clear, you can hear them across the country and through rough, staticky radios. But as you shift into the later years, as these signals get better, as the technology becomes more and more and more refined, for one, you can start to... and by the way, World War II helped invent a bunch of this technology, but it was secret and for the military for quite a while after that. You started to get a new voice emerging, which is actually referred to now as DJ voice. Which is this low sort of tone. You're listening to... whatever the station's name might be. You're listening to 104.5 Chum FM. That's just a local station here. That I say local. They're over a huge area. I don't even know if that's the right radio signal for them. And my mic isn't quite close enough to do this, so I'm gonna just bring it a little bit closer. You're listening to 104.5 Chum FM. Where you get that sort of deep, almost breathy voice, and you see that continue into the morning radio voice, the "Good Morning Vietnam." And part of the reason for that particular thing, it emerged for two reasons. For one, those long, drawn-out syllables for the vowels. If anyone's been on radio or or speech YouTube, you've almost certainly heard the explanation for those. The whole idea behind those particular invented accents is entirely practical. So, you can imagine, morning radio disc jockey, they've got to be starting their day at 5 a.m. to get everybody all woken up for the military, because it's Vietnam. And they were out drinking till 2 the night before, and somebody came and woke them up, 5 minutes before they needed to start. So they've ran in with their uniform in hand. They're coming in, they're clicking everything on, and they've got to start broadcasting. So they click their mic on, they've not even got their headset on, and they can see the levels with their eyes, and they're like, good, as they're fiddling with everything, getting a record queued up, and they're like, morning, and then whatever the name of the camp is, or if they're broadcasting at the national level, the name of the country, or and then usually they'll have to give off their station number, which is just whatever frequency they're broadcasting on. And they're getting a record queued up, and those big long syllables, they serve two functions, almost in the same way that revelry, which is the I don't even know the tune of it, but that's just my rough guess, given cartoons and whatnot. The same way that gets blasted out, it's to help wake everybody up. So it serves a dual function there. So it helps get everybody woken up, it helps get everyone moving, but it also gives the DJ time to get properly into uniform and get records queued up and start broadcasting. When they've just woken up after having been out drinking till 2 a.m. the night before. And so one of the things RP was meant to solve was, how do you speak clearly for the radio of the time? And so they landed on the key was enunciation and particular shapes of vowels. So someone who speaks in RP is not supposed to say So it's not it wouldn't be, oh yes, I'm going to start my car, but I'm going to start my car. You're not starting the car, you're starting the car. It still has to sound distinctly British, but it also needs to sound clear over the radio. And it needs to sound proper and presentable. So then, and here's where it goes from a completely constructed dialect with defined rules based on people theory crafting to an organic one, is you end up with a whole generation growing up hearing RP on the radio, speaking RP as mixed in with their normal language. That generation grows up, they get on TV, they're using RP every day, because the mandate for RP on television didn't end until 2018. So it lasted over a century as the mandated dialect, and anyone who wanted to be in broadcast on camera had to know to speak RP. You had to know how to speak it. So there would be classes if you were in film school, or, well, not just film, but like broadcast, or you were going into communications, there would be dedicated classes for learning how to speak in RP. And so that means that the rules for the dialect became sort of ingrained in a lot of people, and a lot of people would start using it at home or around friends to practice, but eventually it just became what they spoke. And so then you've got a third generation coming in, with a lot of people in that industry just speaking in RP all the time, which means it starts to take on new rules. It starts to develop its own slang within that rule set. And then you have a fourth generation growing up and speaking RP. I'm just going to eat some more of my chili real quick. And it's what their parents, be they in broadcast or not, speak. It's what their kids speak. And their parents speak a decent amount of RP. And so, like, while RP is no longer mandated for broadcast, it has, in a lot of ways, actually survived past its time in the way Mid-Atlantic Standard didn't. RP is received pronunciation. It was at one point the mandated dialect for anyone broadcasting in the United Kingdom. Not for silly reasons either, but for semi-complicated, but actually good reasons. Mostly down to technology. A lot of technology that was developed during World War II technically made RP obsolete. But you also have a country that's, recovering from war, and a lot of people in the broadcast world already speak RP, and it's what a lot of people are used to. And it's a dialect that everybody in the UK can understand, so national level broadcasters don't want to change it. Local level broadcasters looking to expand their range don't want to change it. And so there was, post-World War II, no real push. Got Eepy and napped to Shorebo rambles. Aw, cute floof. There was no real move to move away from RP. The big thing that actually pushed England away from RP was, and it was actually across all of the United Kingdom, but Scotland had exceptions for Scottish Standard Radio, which was its own accent that had been crafted specifically for Scottish listeners, and it was intelligible between both English and Scots. And partially, actually, because it's partially communicable to Scots, also partially it was fully communicable in Scots. It was also partially understandable in actual Scottish. Wales had their own, because if you were broadcasting in English, you had to use RP, but if you were broadcasting in Welsh, you had to use Welsh Radio Standard, which actually has its own name in Welsh. And if you're broadcasting in Ireland, well, you were using English Standard. Well, it's not English Standard, sorry. RP. RP was the earliest of the ones that was formalized for broadcast, but it wasn't the only one. But, yeah. So from there, and this is the big thing. All of those dialects sort of diversified, and from there you basically had them have impacts on the local dialect. But RP didn't change actually for a number of decades, simply because the standard that had been made was good enough, and the people who used it didn't want it to change, and the people who were coming in after them had already accepted that this was the practice. The biggest thing that pushed England away from RP as standard was an increase in two things. One, migration from other countries, which I think moving away from RP as standard was a good move. But secondly, the fact that it had become an organic dialect in and of itself that was spoken in many areas, it had become its own organic dialect. Part of the push away from using local dialects was to professionalize radio. Radio before RP was a messy place with, local stations, national stations, county stations, international stations. I say international because back then there was actually a push to consider England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland their own nations, which wasn't true. It hadn't been true for a while, outside of Ireland itself. And the whole business with Ireland and Northern Ireland was still going on, as it pretty much always has been. Hopefully now, things seem to have largely died down. I think a lot of the Irish still want Northern Ireland in. A lot of the Northern Irish are kind of split on the issue. So, to my mind, it rings to me a lot like the Quebec situation here in Canada, which I'm not going to try and speak on the Ireland situation. I will speak on the Quebec situation, though. To my mind, right, the Quebecois government keeps basically threatening that they want to leave and that they will leave. And to my mind, our national government should do one of two things. It should either call their bluff and say, okay, you can go. And if they want to stay, well, great, they can stay. If they want to go, let them go, right? That's my perspective, I don't feel like Quebec is too hard done by here in Canada. Looking at it from the perspective of a policy wonk, which is what I am, that's Canadian politics slang for someone whose primary thing in politics is the policies. Quebec and French speakers writ large in Canada don't get a too bad deal out of everything. The Quebecois are, they have a lot of additional rights and privileges that no other province gets. I say the Quebecois. Quebec itself has a lot of additional rights and privileges that no other province gets. And Quebec gets a lot of rights and privileges that French speakers, there we go, get a lot of privileges in this country that are not extended to everyone as rights. As an example of a difference, so I'm a native English speaker. I speak a little bit of French, but it's not good. It's enough to order a coffee and ask, where's the bathroom? The kind of things that if I was suddenly thrust into a French-speaking part of the country basically covers me on the basics, but nothing more, really. I could not get service from any government thing in Quebec. I could not receive service in English. I have to speak French in Quebec. And if I get service in English, it will not be someone who is fluent in English. It will be someone who is about, better than my level in English, but not much, and that is considered a luxury in Quebec, which does have a not insubstantial number of English native speakers. The same way that Ontario on its eastern border does with French speakers. In Ontario, both in Northern Ontario and in on the very eastern side of Ontario, it is actually relatively easy to get service in French. In fact, in my hometown, there was only, we had a Service Ontario that functioned for a lot more than just being a Service Ontario. That's the local government bureaucratic office, is Service Ontario. And The only person that we had working there was a French speaker. They spoke French first. English was their second language, because any service station that you have has to have accommodations for French speakers. And most people in Quebec do speak English. So you can get a Quebecois into do both jobs in Ontario. I will tell you, we did not have anyone in town who spoke French. Not as their native language, anyway. We had more people who spoke things like Polish and Ukrainian. Then we had people who spoke French. To my mind, part of the problem is that Canada has official languages. And so service must be rendered in one of the official languages. And if it's going to be one of the official languages, by default it's going to be French, and optionally English, if you're in Quebec. And if it's in any other province, well, the last time Ontario looked at cutting support for French first, our prime minister, not prime minister, our premier, that's the equivalent to a governor for the Americans, got a big earful from the Prime Minister of Quebec, who is actually, that is actually the official job title now of the head of Quebec, is the Prime Minister. And they have a national parliament now, not a provincial parliament. And they're no longer the province of Quebec, but they're the nation of Quebec. And it's like, it feels like they want to be a separate country. To my mind, we should let them go their separate ways. To my mind, services should be offered in the dominant language of a community plus one of the official languages, or dominant languages of the community, right? So if you've got, for example, a community that has a lot of people who speak, just as an example, let's say you've got a lot of people who speak Jamaican patois, then services should be offered in Jamaican patois plus one of the official languages. If you've got a large population center of people speaking Hindi, then service should be offered in Hindi and one of the official languages. And I'm cool if we want to keep French as the official language, or one of the official languages in this country. I'm cool with that. I'm not going to object. But to my mind, in areas where you have a large English-speaking population, it should be English that is serving as the official language. Because that's one of the dominant languages where the people are. You know, if you've got a big population area that is, say, French-speaking, then French should be what's available as the official language. You know, but it should be hard for me as an English speaker to not get service in English at my local Service Ontario. And it sometimes is. Service Ontario, by the way, for the Americans, is something like a cross between the DMV and generic government building. It's where you go to get your photo ID card if you don't drive. It's where you go to get your driver's license if you do drive. It's where you go to take your driver's test. It's also where you file pretty much any province-level paperwork. Hell, you can even sometimes file municipal paperwork there. But yeah, there have been days where I've gone and it's like, yeah, there's just not English available. And it's like, why? And it's like, the one person we have on the floor speaks French. It's like, okay, do they speak English? And it's like, yes. And it's like, you go up to them and it's like, oh, they've got a thick French accent. They're from Quebec. And so the English that they speak sounds a lot like this. And while it is possible to tell certain words apart, they also have string together into something like this. And it's like, that's not English. You should absolutely, to my mind, be able to get service in fluent English. You should also, since it's an official language, be able to get service in French. You should be able to get service, just thinking about the population dynamics of where I'm at, in Korean, in Polish, in Hindu, in Russian, in Ukrainian. You should, to my mind, be able to get service in sign language. For the hearing impaired, you should be able to get service in you should be able to get service in just about any language, to my mind. The thing that annoys me is that it's like French first, even in a place where the majority of people speak English as their first language. And it's like, it feels like I should be able to get service in English. I do speak it. It is one of the dominant languages where I'm at. So I'm like, the French get a lot of extra privileges. I'm going to call them that, even though they're rights enshrined in the Charter, which is our equivalent to the Constitution. We have a Constitution, but ours is a dead document. There are no amendments to be made to it. We cannot amend it at all. We've got a constitution which outlines what we are as a nation, and all of our rights and privileges come from a document known as the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. They're called freedoms even though they're privileges. Yeah. And it's like, there are a lot built in there specifically for French speakers. And I can totally get, especially given, Canada originally started off as Upper and Lower Canada, one half of which was largely French-speaking, one half was largely English-speaking, and those are now Ontario and Quebec. It is really funny when I see Americans pronounce it as Ontario. I find that just a little bit amusing. But, like, Quebec gets a lot of extras because, French speakers. And it's like, I don't feel like they should be getting extras for being French speakers. I feel like whatever things are being extended to them should be extended to all Canadians. Owl shade. There are other things with Quebec, too, that kind of annoy me. So, Canada has homogenized tax code, which means I don't actually experience paying a separate provincial tax from a federal tax, from a whatever. I just pay my taxes. And to be more accurate, I file my taxes. I don't pay them. The government collects the money at multiple different points, from homogenized sales tax to taking it out of any payments that I receive. And then I write to the government, I file my taxes declaring how much money I made over the course of the year, both from my Twitch income. Here's the thing, I get dinged twice, actually, for my income from Twitch, because Twitch takes an amount off, and then PayPal additionally takes an amount off for taxes to be paid to the Canadian government. I have it set up that way on purpose. It actually let me set it up either way. But yeah, my PayPal takes a cut, and my Ko-fi takes a cut, my Patreon takes a cut, my Twitch takes a cut, and they all turn that over to the Canadian government. So from there, I can then basically, I file my taxes and say, I made this much. Twitch basically said they paid me this much. Patreon says they paid me this much. Ko-fi says they paid me this much. This is how much I received post-taxes. And the government goes, okay, cool, with the amount you made, you're owed this much back. Or, theoretically, you owe us this much extra. I was like, that's great. And so I put in all of that income, and when I was employed, my employer paid them, and I submitted my pay stubs, which have a little line to say how much I was paid, how much I was actually given, how much was directed to different taxes, be it, you know, my HST, my ODSP, my everything. Can we get a shout out for Shade, please? Thank you, Floofy. But yeah, so what happens is Ontario collects their tax from the Canadian government, but that's on a personal level. Any business that's operating in Ontario pays a certain amount of tax. And they pay that straight to the Ontario government. They collect all of those kinds of taxes. And then those taxes get pushed up to, so the federal government collects a portion of the income from each of the provinces annually. And then, according to the need of those provinces, they dole amounts out. Which makes a lot of sense. And sometimes the money comes straight back to the province. Especially for the less wealthy provinces. You know, they might send, like, a third of their total income up to the federal government, and then the federal government turns around and gives it right back. Going, yep, you get this money back. But Quebec, not me trying to hate on Quebec or anything. Not at all. Just, they get a lot of the money that they send. They actually get more money than they send back. And that's not because they're a poor province. That's because they actually, like, it's been written into law that they get a certain amount back. Like, and they get a percentage over 100% of what they put in after it's all calculated. I think they have to, by law, just automatically get 30%. I think that's what it is. I don't remember off the top of my head, but they get a certain amount of what they send back. In addition to what they need back from the federal government. And no other province gets that. And what it is the Canadian federal government going, oh, please don't leave Quebec. Oh, we like you, Quebec, we like you. And it's like, no. No, if Quebec wants to leave, they should be free to leave. They should not be being bribed to stay. if Quebec wants to go, let them go. I'm cool with that. I think a lot of Canadians would be cool with that. You know? To my mind, what we should do is, Quebec's cities, towns, districts, however we want to break up Quebec, should each get to vote on whether they want to stay or they want to go. And they should vote, and the cities, towns, and whatnot that, vote to stay, they get to stay and be the province of Quebec at the same level provincially as every other province, no special treatment. And, the parts that want to leave can leave and be their own country, and Canada isn't going to fight them, it isn't going to stop them. In fact, we might support them for some time. To my mind, that's okay. But what Quebec would need to do is say, the new country of of Quebec. Maybe they'll need to come up with their own name. But this newly minted country of Quebec would need to start producing currency, because that's one of the things that Quebec has wanted when they've said, well, we want to leave, is that they want to keep using the Canadian dollar. They want to still be able to regulate and mint the Canadian dollar. And it's like, no. No, if you want out, you want out. What they're doing, to my mind, is setting, basically what's called a fuck you price to leave. And it's like, you're the one who wants to leave. We don't want you gone. But they're setting a fuck you price to leave. And, so basically, the rest of Canada has said, well, no, we're not willing to pay that price. And so they keep bandying on about how they're oppressed in this country. And it's like, I don't think you are Quebec. Like, not in modernity. Why do they even want to leave? Is it literally just because they speak French? Well, so Quebec was treated quite poorly in the early days of Canada, and French speakers were treated quite poorly in the early days of Canada. Historically, Canada was not great to the French. And by historically, I mean there are people still around today who it is in their living memory that Quebec was treated poorly by the rest of Canada. It took up until about the 60s for it to come to an end. And the rest of Canada treated them quite poorly on the grounds of being French speakers. I did not see that come up and blow me up. So, yeah. So the rest of English-speaking Canada was not kind to them. But around the 60s, things started getting a lot better. We also signed the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. We created the Constitution of Canada, which created the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. They got a whole bunch of extra privileges in there. And so that's all been meant to compensate. Political inertia being what it is, Quebec by that point had its own a separatist party known as the Bloc Québécois, or rather Le Bloc Québécois, which is a French separatist party. Or rather, that's what it was in its origin. And there's a lot of political inertia that still keeps them that way. Like, I remember during the 2010s, they were threatening to hold another referendum on staying in Canada. And anytime Quebec doesn't get its way, they throw a hissy fit. As an example, so University of Toronto, which is not the one that I'm looking at going to. Excuse me. Was looking a few years ago at ending French speaking on campus. No longer offering on-campus teaching in French, I should say. Not speaking, not, blocking the speaking of French on campus, but they were not going to have teachers on the University of Toronto campus who spoke French. What they were going to do was partner with the University of Montreal, where classes could be offered in French. And the whole idea there was that they could offer more classes in French, but not offer them on campus. Because that's the thing. We don't get a lot of call for French speakers at, University of Toronto or in Ontario in general. So every so often a government-run thing or a big university or some such will say, well, look, we often don't get enough call, but we have a legal mandate that if we have students, we have to run classes in French. And that doesn't really make good business sense, because we might run one class for 8 students in French. And that means getting in, French-speaking professors to teach the class. And, it's a lot of expense for a few students. So they were thinking, well, we'll partner with University of Montreal, and we'll set up a whole area of the school specifically for doing virtual classes in French. So, setting up offices, where you could go and... Fuck, why can't... I'm just going to take the water. And to my mind, this seems like a perfect solution, right? You've got students enrolled at, the University of Toronto, getting classes offered by University of Toronto, and they're getting them in French, where the professors who are already hosting classes, already having office hours, are in Montreal, and they're just giving them, as time permits. So they can pop in, do virtual classes, things like that. And that, to my mind, is a reasonable solution to the whole problem. The French speakers get classes offered in French. And, you're supporting French speakers, and the mandate is still being maintained. But that was not acceptable to the government of Quebec, who went and tore a strip off the premier, who is not responsible for what the university wants to do, I should add, telling the premier that, who is our equivalent to a governor, that they better make sure that Quebec speakers get classes offered in French, or Quebec speakers, French speakers get, classes offered in French in Ontario by Ontario professors, or rather by French-speaking professors based out of Ontario. And it's like, why are you complaining to the premier? This is a private business, because universities are private businesses. Saying that they want to partner with another private business to meet their education mandate. Supporting French-speaking, professors in Canada, but just supporting ones who are based out of Quebec, rather than having to basically find French-speaking people who are able to teach these classes either in Ontario or snag them. I was about to say nag them from Quebec. No, snag them from Quebec schools. And it's like this was a very, to my mind, smart move. But no, it was considered unacceptable. So we ended up having to continue that mandate. And what that means is sometimes you get English speakers getting funneled into classes where it's like, yep, you got to know French, and it's like, I don't know French. And it's like, sorry, the only professor we have for that class is a French speaker. And it's a French first class, and it's like, right, but it's an Ontario class offered in an Ontario university, and we speak English here as our primary language most of the time. Why are we doing this? It just seems very silly to me. And to my mind, it's like it's good to have classes offered in French. What would be even smarter is by allowing French speakers access to these classes and, helping support native French speakers out of Quebec, and making sure classes are also available for English speakers. Because that's the thing, is the money that's being spent there is not being spent elsewhere. And it's not like Ontario has a huge French-speaking population. We do have some French speakers, but we don't have enough that I would say it's really strictly relevant to most of the time to have classes offered in both. So it's a big kerfuffle. It's a big kerfuffle. But what can you do, right? Alright, we've almost gotten this down to floor level. But anyway, yeah. They want to leave, or rather they continue to express that they want to leave, usually while saying, well, we'll stay if we get XYZ, and if we leave, we want XYZ. And whatever they want to leave is more than they want to stay. And so the Canadian government usually goes, okay, we'll give you what you want to stay. And it's like, no. Let them go. Part of the other thing, too, is the Bloc Québécois has as one of its party mandates to advocate for French speakers outside of Quebec. Now, most of the time, they don't actually give a straining shit about French speakers outside of Quebec. Most of the time, when they care, it's that a government or an institution has publicly announced something that could theoretically impact people living inside of Quebec if they wanted to venture outside of it. Is it so hard to put competent people in government? Because a lot of people don't care about the policy platforms, or rather the policies, because policy platforms and policies aren't the same thing. People care about the sound bites on TV. And competent people are often what is referred to in Canadian politics as policy wonks. That's people who are going to sit down, they're going to review the policy briefs, they're going to find problems in them, they're going to want to understand how they intersect with the other bits of politics. And they don't they don't make good sound bites. They're not compelling people to vote for, unless you are also a policy wonk. And most policy wonks end up working in government. Usually, they end up being what's referred to in Canadian politics as backbenchers, or as specialists, or as policy drafters, or as aides, or they end up working in positions where they're not the ones drafting policy, but they're often helping politicians understand policy. Who's seen as a bit of seen a conspiracy theorist make it to Congress? People just want someone charismatic and say what they want to hear. Could we see your house fully? I need an idea for... yeah, sure. So, I'm not someone who tends to just build a house. I tend to build bases. So, why don't I give you guys a tour of the base? Bearing in mind that a lot of these projects are left partially unfinished. So... here we've got my, my kelp and bamboo farm, or sugarcane farm. This is all going to get switched out to bamboo, because that's what I use to power my furnaces, is dried kelp blocks. That's my smelter. What I really need to do, and this is going to be part of my sorting setup, is I'm going to have this whole system. I'm going to build 2 of them, so that way excess kelp and excess bamboo gets funneled into here. And then that will get funneled into a super smelter. And people will ask, why not lava? Why not other fuel sources? And it's like, because this can theoretically be fully automated. And I will eventually build a fully automated smelt system. This is the barn. I still need to put in the roof trusses and build the attic. This is where I used to have sorting stuff, but I'm going to be expanding my animal pens. Up here, I have more animal pens. And in the attic, there's going to be even more animals. Back here is my functional farm, which is currently just all wheat. I've got melons, mostly because they're more of a pain in the arse. I've got this, which is my bee farm. Hello, little bees. Hello. I hear angry people with crossbows. Oh, there they are. So I'm going to be building my own village over here. And it's going to be centered around this jungle temple, which is going to be refitted to have a bunch of job stations down here in the basement, as well as a bunch of job stations up here in the top. I need to get more of these pale oak trapdoors for it as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and see if I can hook up some sort of quasi-connected redstone thing, where those open when the sun comes up and those close when the sun comes down. Right now I'm just growing trees out here, which is the wood that's going to be used for building all of the houses. I've got to sleep, and then I'll keep showing y'all around the base. And yeah, that's the thing, Shade, is people just want to hear someone charismatic. Not the boring. Well, you see here, policy 1411J says, this is the old wheat farm. It's just aesthetic at this point. There's the other wheat farm, which is also just aesthetic. This was where the original starter base was, and damn it. Bloody Enderman. It's been knocked out into a mine shaft. But this is the current house. I'm just gonna send myself into spectator mode here. Oh, damn it, they've moved one of my mud blocks. So, yeah, we've got some floating vine. They've taken more of my mud blocks. Bloody hell. I need to get more copper blocks to finish up the banding around the roof, and I want to put some banding on the barn roof as well. And I've got to pop up top here and put on another jungle tree. Because I want to make a big jungle tree up there. And then, like, build out branches so that way there's this nice covered shaded area. And then in here, I'm going to have to extend all of these up to meet up with the roof. And bloody Endermen have been placing blocks. This wasn't always dirt up there either. That used to just be hollow like all of it. But Endermen have placed blocks. Really filled it in. This is the inside where you got this big open area here. You've got the tree in there, and then down here is the old, well, it's the new old storage system. But even this is gonna get taken out, and I'm gonna move the enchanting room, and I think I want to rethink the base, or the house, but this is roughly the idea. And hello, Foxany. Also, this is the farm. I need to smooth it out a bit more, get it integrated into the landscape, and I'm going to be integrating more of the landscape. And there's also this, which I've seeded with a lot of podzol to make a sort of circle out of. It's not a perfect circle, but it's a rough circle. It's good enough. And this is where the village is going to get put. And I need to put more podzol over there, and yeah. I want to integrate the surrounding area on this side all as wheat fields, with that side all being jungle with the trees around it and whatnot. But yeah, that is my whole base so far. And this hole back here is where my new sorting system is going to go, and it's. This is sort of a mini mock-up of it. There are 10 cells of this where they each sort a subset of the items, and an 11th cell up on the top there, where it's going to house the main sorter, and then that sorter sends things out to the other 10 sorters. And each sorter has 9 slots of designated and 1 slot for overflow. Now, because of bugs in the system, what I really need to do is I need to slowly fill these up with items as opposed to filling them in all at once. And one thing that's going to happen is I'm going to end up seeing what things are a lot of the chaff or the unsorted items, and I'm going to rework the system over time. But yeah, right now I am just working on clearing out the area for the sorter. So that is the base. Thought I heard a Discord ping there. Must not have. Part of the other problem with the Bloc Quebecois, just to finish up my thought on them, is they were created as a Quebec separatist party back when things weren't great. And now that things have gotten better, unfortunately there's still that political inertia from the people who remember when it wasn't great, and the people who they brought in as their successors were Quebec separatists. And when those people were looking for replacements, they brought in Quebec separatists. So the Bloc Québécois is way, way more hostile to the rest of Canada than Quebec writ large is. And so if a referendum was held, basically going, do we want to be in Canada anymore? The result of that would probably be enough to basically tell the Bloc Québécois, hey, stop doing what you're doing. It might finally shock them out of their political inertia. Unfortunately, that's not very likely to happen because every time they threaten to leave, the Canadian government gives them what they want. And the Bloc Québécois is very different in terms of what it values compared to what Canada writ large and what the Canadian government value. You know, an example of this. So, everyone, for example, in Canada has freedom of and freedom from religion. Now, technically, Canada does have an official religion, and it's Anglican. However, that technicality of official religion is more because our head of state is the king currently. Technically, it's whoever sits on the throne, so the head of state is the crown, and whoever wears the crown is our head of state. The crown in a less literal way than the literal crown, because there are multiple different crowns of England and whatnot. And the queen had a different crown at different points in her reign and whatnot. But technically, they are the head of the country, and actually, maybe Chuck is different, but so the crown is also the head of the main Anglican church, or I should say the Church of England, which is usually referred to as the Anglican Church. There are Anglican churches that are not affiliated with the Church of England, but a lot of them are. And just sort of how, like, the Catholics follow, the Pope and the papacy, Anglicans generally follow Canterbury, which is the equivalent to the Vatican. Even though the reigning monarch is out of mostly the royal palace. Now, with Charles, when he was inaugurated, he was not inaugurated as defender of the faith, meaning Anglicanism, but the defender of faith writ large. So it's entirely possible that that means that we no longer have an official religion. And it was always an official asterisk sort of thing. You know, excuse me. So Quebec has interpreted our freedom of religion as freedom from religion in government. So I'm just gonna time a set day. I don't feel like walking all the way back. So as an example, let's say you have someone who is Sikh or sick or however however you pronounce that particular religion, right? I'm gonna go with Sikh because that's what I always hear, and the people locally to me, who are generally pronounce it as Sikh. So if you are a Sikh, and you want to receive government services in almost all provinces and all territory, actually, now that Quebec is now the nation of Quebec, in all provinces and territories, you can go to a government office and a government employee will, without bias, or should, without bias, serve you, even if you show up in religious clothing or, you know, with any of your articles of faith on you. Which for Sikhism is uncut hair, wearing a turban. There's a certain comb that you're supposed to have, as well as a ceremonial knife, which is almost always in Canada welded shut. So while it's technically there, it's not functional. And so you should be able to, in this country, walk into any government building and receive services, or, as an employee of the government, render services while wearing your articles of faith, because you are free, you have freedom of religion. Quebec has interpreted this in the way France has, as not the so there are different kinds of freedoms. There's negative freedom and there's positive freedom. Positive freedoms grant you things, negative freedoms grant you freedoms from things. So freedom of speech is the negative freedom from the government imposing laws about your speech. Freedom of religion is the government saying, no, you are free to practice any religion. The government will not impose one on you. It cannot. France and Quebec have interpreted freedom of religion as the positive freedom. You do not have to observe any religion. Not just you don't have to have a religion, but that you do not have to see people in religious clothing. You are free of the religion of others. And that comes with pros and cons. For example, let's say you have a Sikh man who wears a turban, has a long, uncut beard, because you're not supposed to cut the beard. They've got their kirpan on them, which is the ceremonial knife. They've got the comb and whatnot. And they go to whatever the equivalent of the DMV is in Quebec. And they want to get their ID photo taken, right? If a government agent, a police officer pulls them over on the side of the road, they're going to have turban on, they're going to have those things with them, right? But the Quebec government says, we won't take your photo, we will not render you a government service in your clothing, because our employees have a freedom from interacting with your religion. And some people go, well, okay, that makes sense, I guess. The majority religion in Quebec, by the way, is Catholic. So let's say you have a priest, and priests are supposed to wear the habit. Is it the habit? I don't know. There's a term for what priests wear, and I can't think of what it is. But in Quebec, let's say a priest shows up wearing those things. They're also not supposed to be rendered service. They're supposed to say, sorry, you have to show up in secular clothes. Or whatever that would be said as in French. And actually, a lot of government agencies will actually reject, so this is a fairly, unobtrusive thing, but, showing up with, like, a cross necklace or some such has actually gotten people turned away from things like the DMV or hospitals unless they were brought in emergency situations. So priests are supposed to wear, there's a specific name for it, but it's, that particular shirt with the weird collar, and the long black cloak. I'm gonna call it a cloak. It's Tunic is actually the closer to a right word for it. And a lot of priests will wear black hats, though the style of hat is not mandated. There are a lot of regional variants to it. That's what they're supposed to wear as priests, the same way that nuns are supposed to wear their thing, right? So if a priest went to, say, get their government photo ID taken, in Ontario, sure, no problem, Mr. Priest. These are your priestly clothes. This is what you wear. 9 times out of 10, you'll very rarely be seen in anything but this, you know? For sleeping, they'll have pajamas. They might sometimes have clothes for when they're not doing priestly things, but they don't want to get their priestly clothes dirty or whatever. But if they're supposed to, they're supposed to wear those particular clothes most of the time, if not all of the time. But in Quebec, if they show up wearing that to go get their government-issued ID, like a photo of their, for government ID, they're supposed to be turned away. Told, nope, you can't wear that here. Our employees are not supposed to have to interact with your religion, and no government agent is supposed to respect it. And it's like, well, but hold on, what is the purpose of a government-issued ID? And people have made this case before. It's to accurately identify you. And it's like, if this is what you wear every day, then should it not be what you're photographed in? And, when it's something like, clothing, okay, that's a lot more manageable, when it's like a shirt or something. But for example, Sikh men are not supposed to cut their hair. And so one of their articles of faith is that they have to wear a turban. And government employees, it's like, nope, we're not supposed to serve you if you have a turban on, which has led to problems in the hospital. By the way, priests have the same thing, and there have been priests not served because they showed up wearing those things. And it's like, it's what they're supposed to wear. There have been, and this has been a case where Catholics have been discriminated against who are wearing cross necklaces, and it's like, this is the majority religion in Quebec. Shouldn't it, like, I'm not saying it should get an exemption, but, like, it seems odd to me. Yeah, that's what it reads to me as, too, is universal discrimination against all religions. Not, but that's because they've interpreted, Canada's freedom of religion as being the positive freedom from ever having to interact with another religion. And it's like, that's not what the Charter of Rights and Freedoms says. It's about the government not making laws about religion, not enforcing a state religion. Even though we, at least at one point, technically had one. Excuse me. So, it's just a thing, and, excuse me. More often than not, it gets used almost as a bludgeon against minorities. Because a lot of the time, government employees will make exceptions for little things, like cross necklaces and whatnot. Even though they are supposed to turn those people away, they will more often than not shrug and go, okay. And it would be one thing, right, if there were certain bits of religious clothing that were not allowed to be worn for certain things, right? Things where the clothing provides an obstruction to that job. If you're receiving or giving government services, you are supposed to wear basically plain clothes. T-shirt, jeans, nothing with any religious affiliation on them. Otherwise, in Quebec, the government can turn you away. Which has led to, when the law first got brought into place, like a lot of like emergency services people going, we don't know if we can render aid here. Because the province made laws such that you could actually be punished as a government employee if you did something like that. Like if you rendered aid to someone who was technically not supposed to be rendered aid to. Now, since all of that happened, the Quebec government has basically said, okay, look, for emergency services, yes, obviously you can get aid rendered to you. They're emergency services. But other than that, you're not supposed to render services to anybody in religious clothing. So, like, so Quebec has a mix of private and public buses, right? Which, you know, government-run buses should be a slam dunk for me, right? I believe in, you know, the government running public services that improve the lives of the people in the community. But, you know, like, let's say you have someone who's Muslim or someone who's Sikh or someone who's Jewish or a priest who wants to get on that government-run bus. Sorry, they do not offer services to people in religious dress because of, you know, these rules. Now, the bulk of Quebec's buses are privately run. They're supported by government money, but they're not a government service first and foremost. So they can offer service, and fortunately that is the bulk of their buses, but it's ridiculous. Yeah, that's my opinion. It's a big what the fuck. And like other provinces, other territories, if they tried to interpret the law like that, would be immediately slapped by the Supreme Court of Canada, because obviously that's what would happen. The Supreme Court has said as much, but Quebec gets a handy-dandy little clause in the charter, which basically, you know, so there are two things in the charter. There's the notwithstanding clause within the charter, which should be ripped out, and there's the Quebec clause, which basically says anything in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, Quebec gets to circumvent. And it's like, that shouldn't be the case. And yeah, see, that's my thinking, but apparently Quebec has decided they don't want to do that. They don't want to learn the lessons of history. Now, the thing is this is very much in line with France. That's usually their justification, is it's in line with France. And as an example, in France, so there's a certain article of clothing that some Muslim women will wear called a burqa, which is worn for modesty, and it's a full covering of the body, right? It's not an inherently required thing in Islam, but it is a cultural practice, and technically what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to dress modestly, so that way, you know, skin isn't shown outside of the face. And some people will interpret that even more strictly. It's like the minimum amount of skin should possibly be shown. You know? The other thing, too, is for the environment that the burqa was created in, it actually aligns also with what a lot of Muslim men were wearing, because they were out in the Near East and the Far East and hot, arid, sandy places where full face coverings were actually a good idea, because you get windstorms, you get sandstorms, it helps prevent you from getting sunburned. But a lot of Muslim women will continue wearing them in climates where they're not necessarily required. And if you ever look at one, you'll probably go, oh, that looks like what nuns wear. Because, yeah, it's pretty much what nuns wear. Because it's solving the same problem in pretty much the same way. But in France, a variant of them that's been nicknamed the burkini, which is a variant of it made for swimming, where it's made out of water-repellent fabrics and is made specifically for swimming, and it's got more structure to the face, so that way it doesn't basically go and vacuum seal to the face, which is exactly what would happen with anything that was loosely fitted cloth. As soon as it gets wet, is it would go and vacuum to your face. It's got some structure to it, and most other countries roll their eyes and go, well, that's a bit silly, isn't it? Which, to be fair, looking in at it, yeah, it's a bit silly, isn't it? You know, but it's also not my business, you know? You want to wear what you want, go right the fuck ahead. I'm going to wear what I want, and let's live and let live, is generally my policy. But in France, they've been banned. For what reason? Well, they're a religious bit of clothing, and wearing them at a government-run beach is not acceptable. Like, why? Why is this unacceptable? Because we said so, that's why. And it's like, that's not good justification. That is, I would say, some fucking bullshit. Now, that's my personal feelings on the matter. But, you know, I also feel like it's a pretty fair set of feelings. But, like, it feels kind of insane to ban it. You know, it's like, well, it's the religion being shoved down the throats of other people. It's like, no one's being mandated to wear it. No one is. And then they go, well, what if people are being forced to wear it by abusive spouses? Well, then their spouse is abusive, and the Quebec government, or not the Quebec, fuck, the French government should be investigating that. You know? Well, you know, this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, no. Your government, you're making a claim that you're banning this to help protect your citizens, be they Muslim or non-Muslim, right? Like, why are you doing this? It's insane. And hello, Alan, how you doing? But yeah, Quebec has basically carried on doing the same sorts of things. And to me, it's just madness. Also, to anyone wondering, the reason I do time set day is because I don't view it as cheating. That's pretty much, yeah. Yeah, I'm from Ontario, so I'm used to navigating our political bullshittery. But yeah. We've been Quebec bashing for a little bit. No, I'm still living in Ontario. We've been doing a little bit of Quebec bashing, and I was trying to explain the problem as being Hi, I wouldn't say no to a free meal. I want to boil you? What's that supposed to mean? Bloody hell. I see. I see. But yeah, moving off the Quebec bashing. Mining out the pit is going fairly well. We've finally hit the bottom of it in one section. Totally not a grammar error. But yeah, so we finally hit the bottom in one corner of it, and it's just mining this part down now. You enjoy going deep into caves and destroying the way down. That is a logic I can align to. I'll keep that idea for later. Bloody hell. It is always funny when you pop into chat. Oh, well, thank you. Aw. Well, thank you as well. I'm sure you're also very, very cute, Alan. Dang it. Mills. Well, if you want to help out with anything, we're currently fundraising to get me a new bed on the Ko-fi. The thing should actually say new bed. It says stream office upgrades because I was fundraising for stream office upgrades and a bed at the same time. But we've gotten the new desk, the new desks, and whatnot. So now it's just getting a new bed. You say that like I'm not the kind of person who would absolutely make it clear. You say that like I'm not the kind of person who would make it absolutely clear I ordered the correct amount of vegan Alterna nugs. Hmm. I'm not going to deny it, but I'm also not necessarily going to agree with it because, see, and here's the thing. The Sean Connery impression would probably send me flying. Send me flying, send me laughing. But, I, unlike the stereotype of most femboys, am not a subby bean. I'm the kind who would hogtie someone and have all sorts of ton planned for them. You can't tell it, but I'm wiggling my eyebrows right now. Excuse me. Difference between you and a rooftop is there's shingles looking to get nailed, and they wouldn't plaster you to a brick wall. I've said that to someone once. I'm not sure I get it. There's clearly a fucking joke in there somewhere. Hot shingle. Oh, in a Sean Connery. The difference between you and a rooftop is there are other shingles looking to get nailed. They wouldn't plaster you to a brick wall. I'm trying to think who my favorite James Bond that I've seen is. I think the guy out of Octopussy. I really liked that whole era of James Bond, though, so... That's fair, yeah. Is it shingles like singles? I'm picking up what you're putting down. Goldmember was a good villain. Wasn't he a parody villain? Because I'm pretty sure he was from an Austin Powers movie. Well, if it got you in trouble, I'd recommend sending it in DMs rather than in Twitch chat. Oh, okay then. With your grandma. Ah, I see, I see. Okay then. Well, sure, let's hear it. By the way, if anyone else has any funny pickup lines, I'd absolutely love to hear them. I'm not sure I get it. Very Catholic and smacked me. Yeah, I think there's a reason I'm not getting it. Like, I feel it has something to do with that bit in the Bible where, like, the there was the woman who needed someone to father her a son or some such to be the heir to her dead husband, and both of his brothers kept pulling out rather than no, different thing. Okay, then I'm not clocking it. Yeah. Mind you, I'm not Catholic, so I think the best word to describe what I am to most Catholics and Christians is heretic. I'd get the Black Templars sicked on me instantly if the Imperium of Man was Christian. I think the funniest pickup line I ever heard was, "Are you an angel?" Because I'm allergic to feathers. And the first time I heard that, I laughed and laughed and laughed. I laughed so hard I ended up wheezing. I ended up on the ground wheezing. I thought it was that funny. Also, one really nice thing is a lot of Maynard's gummies, and this is entirely unrelated, don't have gelatin. What's this song? What song? Do you mean in Minecraft, or? Because if it's a piano music, then that's Minecraft. You have a game in the background. I see. The trumpet. Okay. Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know and has been around here for a while, I am vegetarian. And I agree with ethical veganism. I just am not in a situation now where I can completely weed out eggs. And the only bit of dairy I'm still consuming at this point is cheese. Because vegan cheese is not great. And so Maynard's gummies, they don't use gelatin. They, so I know for the Swedish berries, they use carnauba wax and some other things. But the fuzzy peaches, which I also really like, are, in order of ingredients, sugars, sugar and glucose, modified cornstarch, which is a thickening agent, citric acid, which is one of the flavoring agents, tartaric acid, which is another flavoring agent, artificial peach flavor, tartrazine, which is another flavor, and Allura Red. Oh my goodness. That is also a funny pickup line. Honestly, digging this pit out is taking a couple of streams, because I think it's been 3 Minecraft streams. Oh, hey, look. Perfect 3x3s all the way across. At least in this direction. Also, I know this is not the most efficient pattern to mine in, but I find it very relaxing to mine in. You know, it gives my brain something stimulating to do. It's funny, you remind me of a painting I saw recently. Now, that's the kind of thing I would do to somebody. It's the kind of thing I have done to somebody. Multiple somebodies, actually. I have tied people up, suspended them from the ceiling, and had some fun with them. It's been a while since I went to any of those events. Honestly, post-pandemic, the local community, let's say, is sort of gone. Excuse me. Jeez, does this give me 3x3s all the way across? We have multiple people trying to smash. Is it considered a piñata party? I believe that's referred to either as an open relationship or polyamory. Dora, Dora, let's Dora, Dora, Dora. Oh no. No, I read that. No, no, no. Dora is a child. Now, I know that's a joke, but that's a child. Not Dora? Yes, not Dora. No, no, let's not hear the worst one. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, that's... I'm gonna be honest, it's a little bit cringy. It's worse than cringy, but... yeah. Okay, let's... I like dad jokes. I like bad puns. I like dad jokes. I like puns. Oh no. Okay, that one's clever. Okay, but this is the last one for the stream. To be fair, we've only got a little bit of time left in the stream. This is your last one, so make it a good one. Unless you prefer a good joke that's appropriate. I would generally prefer a good joke that's appropriate. And welcome back out of the Tum Dragon. Got too hot? That's fair. That's fair. Excuse me. This is indeed what Dragon said. True, that is indeed what they said. Well, thank you. I'm having chili for dinner, and I took my antacids not too long ago. So I gotta take them on a regular interval rather than all at once, rather than when I feel a burning sensation. What's a billionaire's most scary thing to hear? They're rising up against us. Your stock portfolio is dissolved. There's been a run on the banks. DualShock 4 has been disconnected. Please reconnect. I don't get it. Oh, never mind. I get it. You're talking about the submersible, right? As someone who's into submarines and stuff, the Titan submersible thing is very, very strange as someone who is into things like submarines and whatnot. Like, one of the many problems with the Titan submersible was, so they'd let it sit out for, like, a while out of the water, letting it, like, go through thermal expansion and thermal cooling and stuff. And that's one thing for riveted and welded metal, right? It's entirely one thing for riveted and welded metal, and it's an entirely different story for carbon fiber, and it's an entirely different story for other materials, right? So they let it sit out for a while, and then when it came into contact with the water, it made a whole bunch of horrible cracking noises. Which apparently the people at the company who build these submarines have been referring to as seasoning the submarine. Now, at least in the realm of steel submarines, which is mostly what I know, submarines don't get seasoned. They are built to tolerance. They're built to a certain pressure tolerance, a certain weight tolerance, and things like that, built around ideal depths, right? Now, maybe carbon fiber submarines do get quote-unquote seasoned, right? Maybe that's a thing with them. You know, but like I don't buy it. I don't buy it. It seems dicey. I know that carbon fiber on carbon fiber boats, on other carbon fiber goods, they don't get quote unquote seasoned. They just are as they are. Right? So I'm just like, what the feck? What the fribbity frab just feck? What do you mean seasoned? Just everything that went on there is just like a huge what the fuck. Wait, that makes a great pun. You'll have to explain to me the pun, because I'm not sure what you mean. Sir, is this seasoned fat? Oh my goodness. Okay, that's clever. Yeah. Oh my god, that is clever. But yeah. Anyway, it's Maynard's gummies not having gelatin in them is really nice. Means that I can get Swedish fish, I can get gummy sharks, I can get Swedish berries, I can get fuzzy peaches. Because you know, I'm vegan, well, I'm vegetarian currently, but you know, it's like I like gummies. Not all of the time, and I don't like the ones like jubes that are like hard and they stick to your teeth and whatnot, but like I like gummies. I like things like gummy bears. And I haven't been able to eat them for a while. So it's nice to finally have some that I can. Dinosaur Ramsey doesn't like eating uncooked meat. This meat is raw. I could have made 6 pickaxes. I don't know why I only made 3. I got this patch of dirt, and I'd expected that the grass would have spread. Right, no, no. No, I give corny flirts pickup lines. Yeah, I get that. That's why I was playing along, you know. You know, they're more of a fun category of joke than anything. You know, and I'm a lewd tuber. People will sometimes flirt and stuff. That's fair. You know, being as I am, I generally expect that kind of stuff in chat. You know? And people will do it, and I'll swing it right back at them, and we can have a fun time. I've had a few people take it too far, and I'll usually say, hey, look, you know, and I will say, hey, look, here are the rules. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I like them just as jokes. You know, plus I've already got several partners, and I'm currently very happy with all of them, you know? You know, but I'm... Aw, well... But, yeah, I'm not looking to add to that number at the moment. But I am happy to have someone be fun and playfully lewd in chat, in that sort of way. But, yeah. I'm gonna check something real quick. Good. Alright, I have checked what I was going to check. I ain't stingy. Aw, well, thank you. That is very sweet. It is nice to be streaming again on a Monday. Oh, well, thank you, Alan. Are you still in the Discord? Because that's where my going live notifications get posted. They should still be getting posted in there anyway. If not, I'm gonna have to fix that. I'm gonna check actually really quick. Now that I'm actively thinking about it, let's see here. Stream alerts. Yep, they're still going out. That's good. And while I'm here, I can check. I can check to see if you're still in there. Okay. Server settings, view members. Search for. No, it does not appear that you are in the Discord. Get the live notifications. And that's fair. Every so often, I'll go through and I'll clear out my my Discord and whatnot. But it has been a while since I've done it. If you'd like, I can get you the Discord link. Already in? Oh. Your name on Discord must not be Alan the Psycho, then. Because I searched the members list for an Alan, and I didn't see one. Okay. Applesauce 0170. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. It was a little bit after I'd started. It was around the time I met Gingy. And he started shouting me out that you followed. Yeah. Aw, well that's sweet. It has been fun. It's been very fun for me the whole time. Alright, when this pickaxe goes though, I am going to raid out. Because we are right at the end of the stream here. I was only gonna go for 3 hours. My script needs to be updated to fix the message. What do you mean? Oh, yeah. It's just a plugin that I downloaded. I just haven't replaced the damage plugin. Because it's the same plugin that that gives me the time at the bottom, and that works. So that's the thing I care about more, as well as the damage ping. So hearing the ping to me is less important than the message. It's just one that I got off of Vanilla Tweaks. Java. every so often, like every time the game updates, it breaks all of the plugins and I gotta get new ones. But like with the intermediate updates, like the 1.21 point somethings, really only seem to affect the timber update. But when it goes to like 1.21 or 1.22 at this point, I think, I'm gonna have to replace the other plugins as well, which I'm fine with. See, I just want the audible ping. I'm not using mods, technically, I'm just using plugins. I think they're called data packs now, but they used to be called plugins. Alrighty, well, I know where I'm going to be raiding out to. We have gotten to that time. And let me switch onto this screen for the outro, and I've got the other glasses on. How long have I had those on? Alrighty, so I want to thank you all so much for tuning in as I start the raid. It has been a wonderfully productive Minecraft stream, and I've very much enjoyed it. I'm going to put in the raid message. I believe I did start the raid. All right, here is our raid message. Sharks tunnel on in from Minecraft. And for those of you who have access to the emotes, please do consider using this variation. But it has been a fun stream. And I hope you all have an absolutely amazing rest of your day. Bye now.